When I was 5 years old, I used to practice Jimmy Superfly Snuka moves as a professional wrestler. That was my dream when I was about 4 or 5 years old.
I think of the movie Rudy, and his dream is to play Notre Dame football. He wants to be on the Notre Dame football team. It got me thinking about dreams. Dreams come with work.
Showing up and applying goals and applying the work, that's where a wish or hoping in faith actually becomes a dream that then actually becomes one's destiny.
Forgive me. Sister Act 2.
Whoopi Goldberg says, when you wake up, you can think about nothing else but singing, then you're a singer.
When it's truly a dream, all of that just comes with it. Joko, if you're listening, I'm willing to open for you or write your jokes from the Filipino daughter perspective. Tangent.
I would buy those tickets. I would.
Welcome to Simply Enough. This is Zachary and Elizabeth, and thanks for tuning in.
If you're liking our podcast, we'd love it if you'd share with your friends and family.
And then rate and review to raise our visibility and spread the message of enoughness.
We love you, and remember, you are simply enough.
Just as you are.
Period.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Simply Enough. I'm Mr. Zachary Leonard.
And I'm Dr. Elizabeth Ignacio.
Hi, Dr. Ignacio. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I shared in a previous episode, I'm coming off a weekend with my father. He came out here to Chicago and we went to a Notre Dame football game. And while we were on campus, I couldn't help but recall some of those moments I had when I was at school there. And, you know, Notre Dame is such a institution in college football, and many people know it. Many people don't like it. It's a very polarizing program. Yet what was interesting about that is inevitably when I'm on campus, I think of the movie Rudy, and I know many of us have probably seen this movie. And for those of you that haven't, there's a boy named Rudy who lives in the Midwest, and his dream is to play Notre Dame football. He wants to be on the Notre Dame football team. And he's like my height. He's like 5'8", 5'9", like not a big kid at all, but it's his dream. And he talks about it. And the whole movie kind of leading up to when he's in college, he's telling his dad, he's telling his brother, he's telling everybody in a small town.
And though it's a movie, if I can just, it's a movie, it's based on a true story. Yes. Go ahead.
That's actually a good point. And it is Hollywoodized, but thank you for that. So everyone's like, you're 5 foot nothing, 100 and nothing pounds, like you're never going to do it. Let that dream go. Like that's not a realistic dream for you. And he doesn't let it go as he gets older, and he's playing high school football, and it's a different time. So this was like the 1960s, I believe. So different time than now for sure. But anyway, he doesn't get accepted to Notre Dame. So a big hurdle is that he's not even a student. So he can't play if he's not a student. And then he goes to Holy Cross, which is a community college really right across the street from Notre Dame. And every semester is applying, and he finally gets in. So I'm not going to spoil it too much for those of you. You can spoil it. Oh, already, you probably know where it's going.
Yeah, the movie's how old now? So.
Yes. Well, for those of you who have never considered watching it, or maybe now we've inspired you to watch it, I won't spoil it for you. But he does become a student, and obviously this is Hollywood, so they're going to try to eke out as much fun and love and the heart-wrenching moments as possible. But it got me thinking about dreams. And in the previous episode, we were talking about dreams and whatnot. And why I share this with you is because growing up, I was somewhat Rudy in that sense of like, we didn't grow up with a lot of money. We were quite poor family. And so any kind of dream that was like somewhat far-fetched or seemingly like out of someone's reach came with a dose of reality of like, that's too expensive, or can't afford that, or what about the practical job or the real job, or, any kind of career path or professional path or educational path. There was always a little bit of a dose of reality that came with those kinds of dreams. So we weren't always sure if our dreams were something that, were so far out of reach. But what was interesting, and what's my connection with Rudy, is that I grew up watching Notre Dame football. And because Notre Dame, I knew, was such a strong academic institution, and I also knew that it was expensive, I thought that applying to Notre Dame and getting into Notre Dame as a dream of mine growing up, like, I want to be a part of this program, I want to be a part of this school, was out of reach. I did a lot of the college applying myself, and I was very independent in that regard. I applied to a school in Southern California, and I was blessed with a scholarship to go there. But I was still allowed to apply to Notre Dame, which I struggled with because I struggled applying to this school that I ultimately didn't know if I could get in or if I would be able to go had I gotten in. And why this kind of all comes around is because when I was on campus with my dad, having graduated, my dad couldn't be more proud of me. He just is like, he loves the school. He loves that it was a part of my life and that the stars aligned so that we could do this, that I could be there and then now have this experience together. I said to him, Dad, I don't know if you know a major moment in how I ended up at Notre Dame that was critical to my feeling confident in knowing that I could go. So I'll try and truncate this story pretty quickly because I know I've talked for a while, but when I had such an after school special acceptance into Notre Dame. My mom had opened my mail from a previous school and found out that I got in and got the scholarship and everything. And I was really upset about that. I was upset because I'm like, that's my moment and you took it by opening my mail. So I said, the next letter that comes from Notre Dame, you are not allowed to open it. Please just let me have that. Right. So back at the time we had pagers. So I had my little like blue pager and I was at rehearsal for the show, the musical that we were doing. And I get this 911 page from my mom at like 3:30, right before we're about to start rehearsal. So I call her from the phone in the box office because kids, our pagers weren't actually phones. They were just little boxes that you wore with little numbers that showed up on it. And then you were supposed to call that number from a phone that was nearby. So I call my mom. Anyway, I get in and I run into the theater and I said to my director, who was just a big mentor in my life and just somebody, she ended up coming to my wedding. I just love her dearly. And she knew that I was waiting to hear. And I said, I got into Notre Dame and she gave me a big hug. And then she shouted it to everybody in the auditorium. And so everyone cheered. It was wonderful. Rehearsal ended at 9 p.m. It was a very long rehearsal. And when I got home, no one was home. They were all out celebrating. So it was like, So I walk in the door and there's nobody there. Anyway, they came home, there was a lot of cheering and everything. But I immediately went into the place of my financial aid package didn't come. Notre Dame at that point sent it at a separate time. And that high came to a quick crash or a low of now that I've gotten in and my dream is closer, was it actually out of reach the entire time? Because we were not at a place where we financially could afford it. Like I filled out the FAFSA. I knew what our financial situation was. And unless the school gave me money, I didn't know how I was going to be able to make this dream come true when I had done all the things that were within my control. So what I shared with my dad was they came home, went to bed. The next day he came home from work and I'm sitting at the kitchen table. He says like, what's going on? I said, well, Dad, they didn't include the financial aid package. I don't know what kind of money I've gotten, if any at all. And I said, so I don't know if this is going to be possible. And I kind of broke down because I was so excited about my dream being close. And then also like my dream could potentially be so far away. Mm-hmm. And he said, we will make it work. Mm-hmm. We will figure it out. I don't know what I'm going to have to do, but if this is your dream, you got in, you're going to go to Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. He didn't remember that moment.
Oh,
and I got to share it with him.
Wonderful for you to remind him.
He got emotional, right? I got emotional. And I was just kind of overwhelmed thinking of, my childhood growing up and having this like pull and push of dreams and then not knowing if the dreams are really possible and whether or not a dream is so far out of your reach or not. And then going forward and trying to aspire to get something that I really thought I wanted, in this case, the school that I wanted to go to, working really hard to do it and knowing that there were potential roadblocks out of my control, like financial aid and whatnot. And then getting really, really close and having that feeling of like, it's so close, but it could be so far away. And then that moment with my dad of like, no, your dream is possible. And I know that that's not what happens for many people in their dreams, and then for others it is. But I was really struck our previous episode and talking about play. And then we got into dreams and we were talking about baseball and everything like that. I was really reflecting on my own dreams as a child and how just in this past weekend, there was kind of a reminder that just brought back that feeling of being a 9-year-old boy and watching Notre Dame football and understanding that this was a great school. And I felt like I wanted to be a part of it. And then fast forward to when I'm 18 years old and worked really hard in high school and not only got in, but then it was a dream that became a reality because my parents sacrificed and did what they could for me to be able to go. And my dad said, no, you can go. I just wanted to share that and connect it with what we were talking about before in a previous episode.
Yeah, that's so beautiful, and how very blessed that you were. And then that was your dad's response, knowing that not all families are able to say that and have the same answer. I can't really myself think of a dream that I had, which is just so funny to say because I just felt very solidly that I wanted to be a physician. And then
Mhm.
now going through, my whole education and career. And now I'm, 21 years into being a surgeon. I was just asked last 2 weekends ago, when I was covering a University of Hawaii game, the athletic director asked me kind of randomly, actually, if I could be anything else, if I had my life to live all over again and I could be anything else that I wanted to be, what would I choose? And I thought so long and hard, almost out of frustration, that I couldn't come up with any other answer. Like, I just knew that I always wanted to be a doctor. Didn't know that it was going to be orthopedic surgery, but now that I am an orthopedic surgeon, and that was a journey to discover that,
Mhm.
it's just so very clear to me that there's no other type of doctor that I want to be. So I can't necessarily say that it was a dream. It was just
Mhm.
almost kind of a done deal in my
Mhm.
head, and a done deal in my heart and in my mind and in my soul, that, yeah, that's what I was going to be. So I don't know if I added to the weight of it or put
Mhm.
meaning on it of like,
Mhm.
well, this is my dream with
Mhm.
a capital D. But what I can say to your point and your story, and I hope it's okay that it's not my story, but it's my reaction and my
Yeah.
feeling to somebody else's story, like yours,
Mhm.
is I was just 2 nights ago on Netflix, shocking, and I watched the newest episode of Joe Coy.
Mhm.
So for those who might not even know who Joe Coy is, he is a Filipino comedian, I believe Filipino American, although I think for a while his family might have lived in Canada. So I don't want to take it away from Canadian. Maybe he's Filipino Canadian too. I don't know, but Filipino American comedian who hit it big. He now has 4 Netflix episodes. Steven Spielberg was an executive producer for a movie that just came out that, he wrote, called Easter Sunday. And he's hilarious. And the reason why I especially find him to be hilarious, and I'm so glad that his comedy clearly is resonating with, mainstream America. But let me tell you, as an immigrant American, this is not to take away from second generation, third generation, fourth generation Filipino Americans. But I will say that as an immigrant American, the stories that he tells about his mom with the accent and with the idiosyncrasies of being truly an immigrant, so truly new to America and having to make one's way. I just swear, I feel like he's my family member. Did we share the same household? And though I keep joking to other Filipino friends of mine how he's missing half the story, though, because there is comedy specifically in being a Filipino daughter, which he can't speak of. So Joko, if you're listening, I'm willing to open for you, or at least write your jokes from the Filipino daughter perspective, you only knowing the Filipino son perspective and what you know having sisters. But anyway, that's a tangent.
I would buy those tickets. I would.
No, but I just love him, and I just think his comedy just really hits home. But back to my point of, so now he's hit it big, if you will, right? And in this most recent, his 4th Netflix episode, I'm literally crying from laughter, which, I often cry or tear up when I laugh so hard, which is actually one of his original jokes, by the way, in his first episode or first series, Joe Coy from Seattle, because it was his first show that he recorded. The reason why I bring up the first show is because he brings it up in the most recent episode. And this episode is in LA, a big stadium. I can't remember which it was, but as I'm crying from laughter, he then segue midway in that middle or halftime of his routine. And though it's still comedy and though he's still joking, he actually brings up the discrimination that he was up against in pursuing this dream. What he talks about is how actually, and again, this is all veiled in jokes, but how actually Netflix didn't pick him up. His first Netflix special, live from Seattle, he paid for. And he was told no multiple times by Netflix to have a special. So he said, well, damn it, I'm going to pay out of my own pocket. I'm going to pay for the directors, and I'm going to pay for all of the cameras. And I'm going to pay for all the mics, and I'm going to pay to rent out this theater. And he said he was going to go broke because he invested everything, all in because this was his dream. And though he was told multiple times by Netflix, he was going to do it. And so he filmed the special and then he sent it to Netflix, this time, with actual special in hand, because they had said no to funding the filming of a special. So now here it is, here's my tape. And he was already thinking, if they say no, I don't know what to do because now I'm broke because I invested everything in this. And Netflix got back to him and said, don't shop this around anywhere else. We will take it. Like, I'm getting teary-eyed right now just because I can imagine what he had gone through, not only in what he had faced in the getting of the no's. One of the things that he was told that they would fund his first special if he lost his mom's accent. So tell the same jokes, but lose the accent. And Jo Koy was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, that's not only part of the joke, but that's actually what makes it authentic. I'm telling my story. I'm telling my family story. I'm telling my mom's story. There is an accent with it. Jeff Foxworthy, right? He's like, pretty sure that Jeff Foxworthy, great comedian, was not told lose the accent. His comedy is with thick Southern drawl, part of the joke possibly, but also part of the authenticity that it's thick Southern drawl. Does he get told to lose the accent? So he stuck by his authenticity and invested in himself for this dream. And here now Netflix is saying, don't shop this anywhere. We'll take the special. And here now he's on his fourth special with Netflix, and he has his, Steven Spielberg backed nationwide movie. And he just kept talking about, this is his dream. Don't fuck with his dream. This is his dream. And I'm sorry for my language, but that's how strongly he said it. That's how strongly he meant it. And when it's truly a dream, as opposed to a wish, or as opposed to like, I'd really like that, or wouldn't that be cool? Or this was his dream and he was going to invest himself. That's a dream. That's pursuing a dream. Here I was initially laughing from crying so hard. And now who am I here? Like, what am I doing sitting on this couch and I'm crying watching this comedy episode because of the emotion and the passion from his story of pursuing, and another joke that he says from his multiple specials now, and it's a running joke in not only Philippine American comedy, but I'll say Asian American comedy, which is, whose dream are you living? Are you pursuing and living your dream or the one that your parents want for you? I'm fortunate enough to be saying for me that it's not a dream of my parents, because my mom, who's a physician, actually told me not to pursue medicine and not to pursue her or follow in her footsteps. And, here I am, a physician, a very different type of physician, though, than she was. So I didn't have that burden, but I know many youth or young adults in college and graduate school or professional school, or even now in adulthood and even middle age, recognizing I ain't living my dream. This is not my dream. This is not my life. I'm living my parents' life. I'm living my parents' dream. And honestly, I'm going to say this as a sports medicine doctor. I shouldn't actually. How unfair of me to even say that this is burden that we carry as a Filipino American or Asian American. I see it in sports medicine. I see many a student athlete bearing the weight and the burden of the dream that their parents are trying to live through them. When sure, they love their sport, and sure, they might be great at their sport, but that might not necessarily be their dream. And though they might be accomplished at it and gifted at it and talented in it and even getting awards, that still might not be their dream to pursue any further or any deeper than just wanting to play. Versus, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed how I'm going to show how much TV I watch. Then watch the 7-part series on Derek Jeter and his dream, not only to play professional baseball, but his very specific dream was to play for the Yankees. And not only to play for the Yankees, but to be the shortstop for the Yankees. That was his dream. And ain't nobody going to tell him that he wasn't going to do it. Sure enough, not only did he do it, but he was captain of the Yankees. And That was his whole entire career, because that was his dream. It wasn't a wish. It wasn't a hope. It was his dream that then he applied work to it and goals to fulfill that dream. So then that dream became his destiny, not just like fate where, oh, he's hoping it'll happen. And, you know, in Greek drama, the three fates determine your fate. There's fate and then there's destiny. Showing up and applying goals and applying the work and, you know, investing in oneself. That's where a wish or hoping in fate actually becomes a dream that then actually becomes one's destiny.
You know how to read my mind. I was going to ask if we could delineate between those, because you had talked about them earlier, a wish, a dream, and I didn't even have to ask. You just went into it. And so we're just connected. I just watched that Joe Coy special, and the moment that caught me, that I think caught himself, he had to get some water because it sounded like he was getting a little choked up, connects with our conversation about dreams. And he was talking about his mom's voice and how he felt that when Netflix or whoever was asking him not to do his mom's accent, that it was a squashing of her voice. And then he really charged his audience, like, there are voices that deserve to be heard out here. Let your voice be heard. And he was really impressing that point upon all of them, largely because I think he was sharing in his own experience, his voice was being squashed and his mom's was too. I was struck by that, and also struck by the connection between that comment that he was saying and also what we're talking about now is dreams come with work, and they really do come with a clearness of intention and also an acknowledgement. It's going to take effort. It's going to take work. Rudy didn't get to play for Notre Dame football because he just sat on the sidelines, or he sat in the bleachers and then somebody said, "Hey, do you want to play?" I didn't get to go to Notre Dame by not doing well in school and writing the essay and getting things in on time. They do take work.
As much as we do talk about how it does take work, and it does take getting no's and being knocked down, and it takes investing in oneself, whether it's time, energy, even money, as Joe Coy did. When it's truly a dream, all of that just comes with it. One just takes it with them. Like it just comes with it. And in the pursuit of a dream, if it's truly a dream, then all of that is worth it. It was worth it to Joe Coy. He was scared because when he realized like, okay, well, if this doesn't work, I've invested all of my money and so it's risky, it's scary, but it is all worth it. And it all comes with it. That's a dream. A wish is like a feeling, is a thought, is almost a fantasy. I can't help but think of Disney's Cinderella, a dream is a wish your heart makes. And I'm just kind of like, the next line is when you're fast asleep. Well, the funny thing is that's all cute. A dream is a wish your heart makes, but that's still just kind of like feeling and hope, kind of like you're asleep. But really, if it is a true dream, that's when you're actually wide awake and willing to be all in purely because it's a part of it. And pursuing a dream, if it's truly a dream, all of that, the knocks, the no's are all a part of it. And it's still worth it in the pursuit of a dream because it is a true dream. Versus, as much as this might sound like a motivational talk of like, go get it and go all in, I also, on the flip side, want to relieve our listeners and our viewers. I want to relieve them of that burden and of that weight of, well, if you don't really want to invest all that, then that's okay. Then don't use the word dream. It's not a dream. And it's okay to not have that, what you thought was a dream, not actually really be a dream. Let it be a wish or a hope, or wouldn't it be nice? Yeah. And that way you can relieve yourself of the fact that you haven't achieved your dream. Maybe because it actually wasn't truly a dream for which you were aspiring and was your goal. It was more, like I said, a daydream, or a dream when one is asleep and not when one is awake. Yeah. Or, a hope or a wish, or wouldn't it be nice? Relieve yourself of that burden of like, I didn't make it to my dream. I didn't reach my dream. I think that's as important, to liberate oneself and give oneself space and grace of recognizing, okay, well, I really wanted it, but it wasn't my dream. Right. I think that's just as important as it is to motivate and inspire people to dig deep and work hard and pursue your dream. I think both recognitions of where one is in one's life is self-compassionate,
Yeah.
and from that space can then be empowering to weigh, no, really, actually, it is my dream. But therefore, that means that I got to dig deeper because, yep, this is truly my dream versus, okay, I'm going to give myself space and grace. And, I really would have liked to have had that job or that career or live in that home or live in that neighborhood. But yeah, I'm putting too much burden on myself calling it a dream. It's not quite my dream. It's not my dream job. I would have loved to have had it. And I called it my dream job to everybody that I talked to. But now that I think about it, no, it's not my dream.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. I'm gonna bring up another movie reference. So we're definitely jumping around pop culture and whatnot, but Sister Act 2, forgive me. It came to my mind as soon as you brought this up. Sister Act 2, Whoopi Goldberg, Lauryn Hill. Lauryn Hill loves to sing. She has a mother in the story. The character of the mother is like, no, you need to not pursue music. You need to pursue a reliable career, like, a job that you show up, you get paid, etc. There's so much uncertainty. I think it was because maybe her father was a musician and he was struggling to make sure that they had food and whatnot. Anyway, Whoopi Goldberg says, if when you wake up, you can think about nothing else but singing, then you're a singer.
Yes.
And you need to pursue music. My immediate thought was, then there's an alignment, I think, like an alignment between what your goal is and who you are in the dream. And I'm just riffing out loud, so correct me if my understanding is worth kind of teasing out or clarifying. But what I'm hearing is, if I'm supposed to be a chef, I'm supposed to have a Netflix special because that is in alignment with me.
Yes.
I'm going to pursue it. I'm going to take the knocks. I'm going to take the no's. I'm going to take the rejection, but I'm going to keep going because I am living myself and what I see as my purpose. Then it's a dream. True?
That's exactly what I mean. That's exactly what I mean when I say that all of that stuff, the no's, the rejections, the hard stuff, and everybody, we can do hard things, especially when we just recognize it just comes with it. And what I mean by that, I can personally say I hear so many students who are interested in pursuing medicine come up to me and say, oh, but it's so long. And I heard that, to be a surgeon, it's 13 years because you have to go to college and then med school. And then, so it's so long and it's so hard. And, and in your 20s, that's when friends are making 5-figure signing bonuses and making 6-figure salaries, and they're buying their homes and their cars, and they're doing this and they're doing that. And that is all true. And I tell them that I'm like, I'm not here to lie to you. That's all true. This is where I say, that's why this is a wonderful journey. Should you wish to pursue medicine, where you truly explore, is this really what you want to do? Because, and not that you have to necessarily feel the way that I did, but for me, that just came with it. So I actually didn't even dwell on, oh my God, this is so hard, or, oh, I'm going to be in school for so long. It just came with it. So it didn't make it easy, but all I can say is it just came with it. It was just a part of it all. To think anything other than the fact that it came with it would just be a distraction. And it wasn't even like a matter of willful denial or blinders. It just didn't faze me. The day-to-day work was hard. The day-to-day work sometimes had me in tears. There's no question. But the path, the journey, the direction, the destiny, it was a foregone conclusion. That's what I mean by it was just a done deal. And it just, all of that hard stuff in the moments might have been hard, but the path, the journey, the direction was a done deal. It just was who I was. It was what I was meant to do. And maybe that's why in some ways I don't even call it a dream, like, oh, it's my dream. And that's why I maybe struggle and want to relieve listeners and viewers of like the burden of even calling something a dream with a capital D, because sometimes what we imagine and what we romanticize, once we get there, that dream is a nightmare. Yeah. And give oneself space and grace to recognize, ooh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. I must have romanticized it and Disneyfied it. This dream ain't no dream. If we relieve ourselves of the almost weight and responsibility of pursuing one's dream with a capital D, just like purpose with a capital P. If we can almost relieve ourselves of that, that's how we can be very self-aware and self-compassionate to self-assess and discern what is the path. Is this a dream? And therefore, with that discernment, go all in. And once with that discernment, it's your dream and it's aligned with who you are. All of the hard stuff doesn't matter. And all of the investment is just a part of it. Or through the discernment, that is more than I want to invest. And then it's not a dream missed. It just actually wasn't a dream. It was a goal, or it was a hope, or it was a wish.
Yeah. What would you say about dreams changing?
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
That's
absolutely,
that self-assessment and self-awareness and discernment and recognition, with being awake and eyes open, as opposed to daydreaming. And by the way, I'm not against daydreaming. Daydreaming is awesome. I'm a daydreamer.
Yeah.
But what I daydream about is not my dream. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's where a dream, this is my dream, I'm going to pursue my dream.
Yeah.
That's eyes wide open. That's wide awake.
We have a number of performing arts friends, people that have performed on Broadway, regional theater performers, film and television, et cetera. Many have gone through the ebbs and flows and ups and downs of pursuing a life in performing arts, and the no's and the rejections and the auditions and the auditions and the auditions and the audition, and never landing a job. I was just watching an interview with Michael Keaton, and Michael Keaton was reframing what his job was as an artist on film and television. And I also think it connects with what you're saying about one, relieving yourself of the burden, and then the meaning that you're putting on dream, and then maybe either giving it a different word or just really understanding what you mean when you say. Michael Keaton was saying, I don't see auditioning as the route to the success of landing the job. I actually see auditioning as part of the job itself. So if I show up and I get called to an audition, I've done the work. I did my work. I showed up. Whether or not I get the job or the gig or the role is kind of superfluous at that point, because I did the role of an actor, which is what I wanted to pursue. My dream was to be an actor, and an actor goes to auditions, an actor pursues parts and whatnot. But in that has to do the things like doing your resume, getting your headshots, going to auditions, et-cetera. And what I appreciate about that is he was just reframing, not just in performing arts, but I think to what we're saying, which is all of that work, all those no's and everything are part of the path that you are ultimately, that are captured in your dream. So going to Notre Dame as a student, yes, was my dream. That was like a goal, but all of the years leading up to it, the studying, the nights up, the tests, the group work, the SATs, et cetera, were all part of the dream, which is why, to your point about, it's not necessarily good or bad, work hard, easy. It's all just embedded in part of it, all a part of that process and that journey that's embedded in the dream.
Absolutely. And, I have a number of athletes as my coaching clients, and we talk about visualization. And for those that are listening, visualization is literally with your own muscle memory. You develop muscle memory by visualizing and imagining what you're doing, and the mechanics of how you kick the ball, or how you throw the ball, or how you dive on court, or how you swing your bat, and all that kind of stuff. So that's visualization. And a lot of the visualization, obviously, is to visualize you doing it successfully. And then there's even the motivating visualization of imagine yourself on the podium with the medal and crossing the finish line, all this kind of stuff. And that's all the fun stuff. But I'll tell you, the ones who it truly is their dream, that this is what they want to do and they want to get to the highest level, they're always shocked when I tell them this, especially because I'm so happy, positive, optimistic cheerleader. I tell them, don't forget to visualize that you're on mile 24 and you fell and you stumbled. And that's not to bring you down, because then what I want you to visualize is that happens, and how are you going to pick yourself back up? What is going through your mind as you're picking yourself up? What hurts? What is sore? Where are your scrapes and bruises when you fall, so that you then move through it and you overcome it? Because that way you are prepared, because the hard stuff just comes with it. and you're not overwhelmed. You're not stopped in your tracks. You are not buying into the fact that you're in a slump because you're going to get through this slump. You have to visualize that as well. Don't dwell in the negative. The point is to visualize the negative to then move through it and overcome it. So then that becomes just as much second nature when hard stuff comes your way, or when obstacles come your way, or when things don't go the way that you wanted it to. That becomes just as much second nature as the second nature of the muscle memory of how to throw the ball or swing the bat, or visualizing yourself getting the gold medal. It just comes with it.
In a previous episode, we talked about, we often just see the highlight reels, right? We don't see all of the work in between. As you were talking, it made me think about that episode and what can happen for young impressionable minds. But your point is not only spot on, but it also connects with the previous episode about when we see others and we see their path, we don't always see everything that's happened leading up to whatever they've done that we would qualify as a success or an achievement or whatnot. And that there have been many moments when it has been hard. They've gotten a no, or they've fallen, or they didn't land on the podium, or they didn't cross the finish line, et cetera. That's all part of their journey.
Right. It's all part of it.
Yeah.
And if one isn't willing to go through those hardships, no bad on them. It just means relieve yourself then of the burden of calling it your dream. Because if you're not wanting to go through those hardships and say no to, again, what we often hear about Olympians, especially the younger ones where their career is young. So the gymnasts and the ice skaters, for example, to a person, they say, I gave up going to prom, and I gave up, having, relationships, and I moved to another state, and I trained under this tyrant of a coach, and that kind of stuff. That's that. And they did. And that's their dream. And that was a part of it. And they knew that coming into it, and they were willing to do that. If one isn't willing to do that, that's fine. That's great. But then again, relieve yourself of the burden of saying, oh, well, that's my dream, and wistfully thinking that you missed your dream. Right.
Or also even thinking that it's your dream and getting into it and realize, oh, this is a nightmare, or this is not what I thought it was. And then you're right about relieving yourself of that burden of now holding on to, I didn't achieve my dream. Well, now you have more information. So maybe it's no longer your dream. It's changed, or you don't want to pursue it anymore.
Right.
I recognized that when I was applying to Notre Dame and then ultimately got in, that there were some things that were out of my control, even in my pursuit of my dream. I think as an 18-year-old, I didn't know that was necessarily the case until it was in front of me, that even if I had done all the things, that there were still moments or pieces of that dream that may have stopped me from achieving that goal, like money, or just opportunity or realities or something. Now in Rudy, obviously, because it is a true story, he kept getting a lot of no's and whatnot. He ended up getting in and then playing for the team. It worked out for him, but there was a very real possibility that I did everything that I could, at least up until that point, and I still could not have achieved my dream because of things that were out of my control. I don't know what to do with that, other than I just wanted to put it out there.
Still in pursuit of that dream, there was that journey that you took. It's not about, well, then find a new dream, Zachary. It's actually, instead, it's not about the novelty of having to find something completely new. It's, well, because of that journey, what is a nuance of that dream that you can hang your hat on? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yes,
so
I do.
So rather than like, well, that didn't work, then what are the nuances of the dream that you've gained something along the way, along the journey? What are the nuances of that dream that you can hang your hat on to then have a slightly different nuanced dream? Not new, but nuanced of this first dream. Nothing is lost. It's not all lost if you didn't reach what you think is your dream.
I'm thinking of two people specifically who are theater arts educators who pursued performing. They went to the Broadway auditions, they went to the regional tour auditions, and they faced a lot of rejection. They probably got some small jobs or anything, but never got to the level that was part of their dream, which is performing on Broadway. And then they became incredible theater arts educators. And one in particular, I've had this conversation with him, and he says exactly what you were saying, which is there will be people that will say to him, well, I guess you just didn't, your dream didn't come true. And he stops them and he says, I get to work with children and carry on the love of performing arts that I gathered all along the way when I performed in high school, when I performed in college, when I showed up to auditions and I was on that cruise ship. And yes, I didn't perform on Broadway. That was part of my dream. But my dream really was to pursue a life in performing arts. And look what I get to do every day. You know what I mean? So to your point.
Exactly.
And then the moment where he could then just reframe somebody else because they were imposing upon him or giving him their interpretation of what his dream was when he was not. And he got to say in so many words of what you're saying, which was none of that was lost. And yes, I didn't get to perform on Broadway, but I pursued a life in the performing arts because that is me. I am a performing artist.
That is my dream life. Yes.
Yeah.
So total different end of the spectrum. And I'm purposely using this story because it's on the different end of the spectrum so that hopefully any and all of our listeners and viewers can find themselves somewhere in between your story and the story that I'm about to say, which is, yes, I went to Georgetown University, and I went to Georgetown and I was a cheerleader back in the day when our basketball team was actually good. Sorry, Georgetown right now. I still bleed blue and gray, but so, it was the days post Patrick Ewing, but it was the days of Alonzo Mourning, Dikembe Mutombo, and then the very beginnings of Allen Iverson. That was my tenure there as a cheerleader. And I am so blessed to call Dikembe still to this day a friend of mine. And I just love him so much. And I love all that he stands for and all the good that he does. And not only is he an incredible athlete, but just he's what a humanitarian, God-fearing, philanthropic man, and funny as all get out. Anyway, sorry, that's my little tribute to Dikembe. That's not the story, but what people may or may not know, Dikembe played for Georgetown and then played for Denver Nuggets and the Houston Rockets, all-star and I believe Hall of Famer. And then just this past year won the ESPY Humanitarian Award, and well deserved. Where does this fall into the story of dreams? So everybody must think, oh, Dikembe, it must have been his dream to play basketball and be an NBA star. No. So Dikembe is from the Congo, and he is brilliant. The man is so intelligent, and he actually got an academic scholarship to Georgetown, not on the basketball team, not recruited on the basketball team. So he came to Georgetown as a freshman, not playing basketball at all, and was there as a pre-med student.
Wow.
And his dream was because when he was a kid, he not only saw the need for good healthcare, there was a doctor in his life that was inspiring. And so that was his dream, was to become a physician. So he was actually pre-med on academic scholarship at Georgetown, just a quote, regular student. And John Thompson actually happened to see him and see his height. He was 7'2", and basically recruited him. So in some ways he was kind of a walk-on to Georgetown, and Dikembe told Coach Thompson, well, no, I'm, here on academic scholarship, to be a doctor. And John Thompson is like, no, I'm gonna, you're gonna play for us. You're gonna make a ton of money because we're gonna get you into the NBA. And sure enough, he was one of the Twin Towers, one of our power centers. Yes, quote, abandoned the dream, seemingly, and who could blame him? But abandoned the dream of pursuing medicine, and then pursued basketball and did as well as he did, which is awesome. What I love about Dikembe, though, is what he then did is there was a time of civil unrest in the Congo, and his mom, actually, there was an emergency and she had to be taken to the hospital and didn't make it to the hospital. And that's because of roadblocks, because of the civil unrest and that was occurring in the streets. When that happened, Dikembe vowed that he was going to create a hospital in the Congo. And with his philanthropy, he had built an entire new women's hospital, named it after and in honor of his mom, and brought high-level hospital care to the Congo. And he said, I did fulfill my dream, just in a very different way of bringing doctors to the Congo by creating and erecting this hospital in honor of my mom. Years later, so just broke ground about a year and a half ago, he then also broke ground for a school in the Congo, and it's a STEM-based, science-based school. And who knows how many doctors are going to come out of this science STEM-based school. So again, Dikembe talked about how he did not completely forego his dream of becoming a doctor, because he just took a different path in delivering and living out that dream. And I specifically also bring this up again to the many high school and college pre-med students that come to me that think that they want to pursue medicine, specifically pursue becoming a doctor, and then for whatever reason decide not to, and they feel like they petered out on their dream or that they gave up. And what I always tell them is be very honest with yourself in discerning what it was about being a doctor that drew you, that you thought it was your dream. Because I like science and it's to help people. And I just remind them, you can do all of those things. It just isn't via being a physician. You can do that in many, many ways. You can do that in healthcare, whether it's nurse or staff, or it doesn't even have to be in the field of healthcare directly. It can be in business. You can still live your dream. If it's not exactly what you pictured, then it's not about a new dream per se, just a nuance of that original dream.
I'm so glad you brought us there. It does. I'm so glad you brought us there, really. And I think that's a perfect place for us to wrap up the conversation, because as we were talking, was thinking about how we are also going to touch upon those dreams that come true, if you will, in a different way than what we expected. I wasn't quite sure how we were going to get there. And then that story, Dikembe's story, and then also just the charge to students. And really, I think adults too, it's a good reminder for adults. We often hear those who do those who can't teach, or they coach. This belief that if somebody were to succeed, quote unquote, as an athlete, or they were to succeed in some field, and then they don't, so they become a coach, or they become a teacher. It bothers me so much, because the ability to pass on information about something that you love, a discipline that you love, to then share that with the next generation. I can't think of anything more powerful and actually more aligned with one's dream than that. Yes, if I had pursued a performing arts career, being on stage, maybe that might inspire somebody, but also being able to teach students about performing arts, or about baseball, or about football, or about technology. I don't see any higher representation of one's passion, dream, hope might be, and then how you can then give it to somebody else. But I just thank you for kind of bringing back, because I was wondering about dreams that come true, but in a nuanced way. And you brought us there. So thank you so much for that.
And to your point, as you said, like, it's okay to change dreams. Like, so either a nuanced dream of the original dream, or sure, in discernment, this isn't what I want. Then pick a new dream. Because as much as I just said, I just realized that this whole episode, I talk about how all I wanted to be was a doctor, and it was like a foregone conclusion. I mean, when I was 5 years old, I used to practice my Jimmy Superfly Snuka moves as a professional wrestler. So that was my dream when I was about 4 or 5 years old. So it's okay to switch dreams, change dreams. And maybe it really wasn't actually a dream, even though that's what we're calling it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And listeners and viewers, remember, as always, you are simply enough.
Just as you are, period. Go dream.
Go dream. I love you.
Bye.